Hello and welcome to another episode of the File Card Podcast. My name's Joe and I'm here with my brother Mike.
Hey everyone.
So this episode is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to run down the figures as we normally do. This episode is strictly a recap of JoeFest 2019.
Yeah, so far, I think for me and Eli, this has been our favorite thing we've done in 2019.
Oh yeah, this is definitely the highlight of the year. It was a guy's trip for us. Me and you took our sons, Joey and Eli. So, it made it even more special and more fun for us, I think.
Right. I mean, we started off with like a 7-hour road trip, all the fun of a road trip. And then once we get to JoeFest, we get to Augusta, the excitement just starts to build.
So one of the first things that happened when we walked into the hotel, I started seeing people I recognized from online, but didn't know personally. So that was interesting, because this is the first time I'd ever ran into that. Like, I do know you, but I don't know you. And I didn't know how that would play out, like, once we interacted. Like, should I walk up and talk to them? Shouldn't I? Do they have any idea who I am? So, but, I mean, as soon as we broke the ice, Jason from the Viper Pit, I think that's right where we started with talking to, and a super cool guy.
Yeah, and then we met Paige.
Yeah, yep. From Flag Points Podcast.
Right.
And Mike from What's on Joe's Mind. And then we met Joel from the Viper Pit Podcast also.
Yes.
So that was all within like 30 minutes.
Right. And the other thing that kind of happened within the first 30 minutes, we're checking into the hotel, and who do we see in the lobby?
Sergeant Slaughter.
And for about 3 seconds, I'm starstruck, right?
Yes.
I mean, just like back to being 10 years old, seeing Sergeant Slaughter, realizing he's right there. And then, of course, you come down and you're like, all right, Sarge is just a guy too. But just for a moment, that was kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
To feel that again. And
I was blown away with his stature. You know what I mean? Like, he's big on TV, but when we were at the front desk and he round the corner, it's like, there is Sergeant Slaughter. He's as big and in person as what he was in your mind.
Oh, he's a huge man,
yeah.
Right? he can't blend in anywhere.
No.
But watching him interact all weekend with everybody, just a gentleman, and he seemed to be a salt of the earth kind of guy. So it was cool. It's always fun when you meet somebody that you assume is a good guy, and they meet those expectations.
And he really did. Actually, everybody down there did, which was mind blowing. When you interact with as many people as we did over the weekend, and every one of those interactions was positive, I don't know if that's ever happened in my life before.
Right, where you kind of meet folks that you know virtually, and you're like, hey, these are good guys. And when we were in line for JoeFest, we met a gentleman, and it's a shame he slipped my mind, but he was cool as could be too.
And we've seen him all weekend.
Yeah, he was out.
Yeah, we ran into him all weekend, and it was like an old buddy. So you'd stop and you talk to him. I can't remember his name either, and we're probably going to do that a lot through this show, is tell stories but not know their names. Or if we miss anybody, trust me, we apologize. So we had a blast meeting everybody, though.
Yeah. So when we get there, we went out and got a quick lunch, right? And it was kind of like a lupper, right? The lunch supper thing. And because we knew it was going to be a late night, we wanted to go right up till 10. So we got in line early. I think we got in line at 5:30.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about getting in line, but you were.
Well, yeah. I mean, on and off, we've kind of said before, we've always had an interest in Joe's, right? So we did some collecting in the mid-2000s, got out of it, sold our stuff, and then we got back in it in the fall. But we've always looked at the JoeFest, or the
JoeCon at the time.
The JoeCon at the time. And we see all those exclusives, and I'm like, I'm at one of these. I am not missing the exclusives, right? Even if I'm not sure that I even want them to keep them, right? I just want to own them for a little while.
Right.
And so I wasn't taking a chance. And we had kind of decided we weren't going to go anywhere else the rest of the day anyway. So we just filled up our travel cups with a little porch rocker. And we just hung out and met some folks and got in line. And I was glad we did, because once the line started, it went quick.
Yeah. So I definitely give you credit there, because if it was up to me, we probably would have just went and hung it back out of the room and then came out and would have been in trouble. We would have been. Because we were actually numbers 7, 8, 9 in line. So that was pretty cool. Once they did open the doors, we were not number 7, 8, 9 at the exclusives table, that's for sure. Some discombobulating happened there, but yeah.
Well, and that's the only thing. Like, when we're in line, you can kind of see the exclusive table. You can see a couple vendors, and not only that, but you see people coming in and out with stuff. So, like, commerce is going on back there, and that's cool. It's not that's not a complaint at all, right? But you just get that anxiety because you see people walking out with bags and boxes and stuff, and you just automatically assume at that moment, all the G.I. Joe stuff I wanted has all been sold. There's nothing left in the whole showroom that I wanted because these knuckleheads that are walking out have already got it, which is not true, and they're not knuckleheads, but while you're sitting there, you're worried about it.
Well, one of the things I've heard before, though, is when people talked about going to these shows, that the people in line are their friends or become their friends, and I didn't know anything about that, but what I found is the guys that we talked to in line there, and then the second line once we got to the exclusive table, I saw those guys all weekend. Every time I did, we'd say hello, talk for a minute, move on. So, like, I made these mini friendships just by being in these lines.
And I'll recognize them next year.
I know, yeah.
Even though I didn't quite remember their names, like, I'll recognize their faces.
Like, the one guy was from Florida. The other guy was from Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like, people came from all over. I came from West Virginia. You came from Pennsylvania. So, I mean, this show drew a huge crowd.
Right. And like, the collector's market is not like a competitive thing, right? So it didn't seem like it there because you're just kind of rooting for the guy beside you. Like, he's got a different agenda. He might be looking for something different, might be looking for the same thing, but for whatever reason there, you're not thinking to yourself, I got to find it before he does. You're thinking, man, I hope we both find what we're looking for. Right. And that was kind of a cool environment too.
Yeah, because there was at no point, even as crowded as it got on Saturday and maybe a little hectic on Friday night, there was no mob mentality. There was no pushing, shoving, or ill will. It was probably the largest group of people I've ever been around that was in a good mood the entire time. There was nothing negative about the entire experience.
No, and you'd bump into folks, right? Because, sometimes the booths would get kind of crowded, and and it was always, excuse me, sorry, and everybody was very polite. So that was an awesome part.
Which it wasn't the case that I've had at other toy shows that I've been to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was definitely this feeling of camaraderie there that I'd never felt before. And I don't think we said this at the beginning of the show, but this was our first JoeFest or JoeCon or anything related to Joe's. We've been to a few toy shows, but nothing like this before.
And I think the idea of it being, a festival and an experience was, especially with Friday night, because a lot of those folks had kind of there for the weekend,
right,
just created a different feel to it all. And I think everybody was there experiencing something different because you weren't just there for toys. You were there to talk to the guys that you interact with on Twitter. You were there to swap stories of collecting Joes, and just the overall environment was great. It was a great environment for our kids, 15 and 12, like very, very family friendly. So the other thing is the vendors, right? So the vendors were really cool to interact with, talk about, things you were looking for that they maybe didn't have or things that they were collecting. And you never got a sense of like, they just wanted you to buy something. I mean, ultimately they're there to make money, of course, but they had a good time interacting and tried not to be a time suck to anybody. If I talked too long, I tried to buy something, even maybe if I didn't want it. But that was kind of neat too, because, most of the guys there that are selling are collectors. Even if they're not Joe collectors, they're toy collectors. And it's just a great crowd all around.
Yeah, it definitely was. So, all right, let's go back. So we're in line, and we're there for what? A little over 3 hours? No,
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours we were in line.
And they opened the doors a little early.
Yep, they did. There was a huge line. But so they do let us in a few minutes early, and then we go to the exclusive table. And then there was a little bit of confusion of like where the line started. I mean, but that got handled real quickly, and I don't think it took any intervention from the staff. Like, everybody's just like, okay, this is, even though we're in front of a couple booths, this is how we're going to line up, and everybody just stayed their spot.
Yep.
And there was no issues with it. So that line moved really slow. And that, I didn't realize what was going on at first, but it was the people at the beginning of the line. They were there for a lot of the custom vehicles.
Yeah.
And then those guys had questions, and they were talking to the the gentleman who designed them and whatnot. And they're spending a lot of money. So, yeah, if they want to take a few minutes and talk, that makes sense. And they have every right to do so. But for us being a little further in the back in line, we didn't understand. I at least didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking too, you know, it's not like a regular vendor table. You don't need to necessarily inspect condition and that sort of thing. Right? This is supposed to be new stuff. But once we kind of talked there later and you realized what was going on and what took so long, it was cool.
Yeah, definitely made sense. I was real lucky. I got to pick up the Unmasked Snake Eyes and the Trader Dusty figures. So I was super stoked to be able to add those to my collection.
And then Eli got a Tommy figure. Mm-hmm. I picked up a Tommy figure for me, and then also an Unmasked Snake Eyes. I picked up a carded one because they had run out of the black bagged ones at that point. But those guys were great. The guy working the table was cool. You know, they were the designers. And it was fun to talk to them.
I can't remember their names. The guys from Unscorched Earth or Scorched Earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were both. Those two gentlemen were awesome. And then we'll get to the point later, but I ran in and purchased some other stuff from one of those guys the next morning. So
you're kind of the highlight of the trip, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
So we get our customs. Some of them were carded and stuff, so we hurry up, run them back to the room because we don't want anything to happen, mess up the boxes. We get them back, and then we hit the floor. Right? Then we hit the showroom floor,
and all of a sudden I get dizzy. I start feeling sick out of nowhere. Like, you know, been waiting for this weekend, for 6 months. Been stoked for it, and I don't know what happens. I just become like ill. And it's like the room's almost spinning, dry mouth, but I keep trying to push through, and I'm just thinking in my mind, don't let this ruin the weekend. Don't let this ruin the weekend. You can't ruin JoeFest. Right.
And so at our first one, I kind of pointed out a spirit, which you had been looking for, and he's a real solid spirit. I think Eli picked up a gung-ho, and I picked up a figure too. And I think in your haze, you were like, okay, yeah, I'll buy it. You know, but I don't even think you realized what you bought. You just kind of were like, okay, seems kind of nice how, you know, and he was really affordable, so you kind of took a chance on him.
Well, I don't even know if I realized it was spirit. You pointed him out to me and told me to buy him, and I didn't want to, but you pointed him to him a second time, said something about it, and then I bought him because the guy got pointed to me, hey, what can I help you with? And I just said it, and I paid him, and I walked away, and then that's when you came by, and you're like, hey, well, we should have tried to bundle that, you know, because that's what you had asked me for, but just I wasn't feeling well, and I kind of like got confused. But to get off of that, I ended up going back to the room a little while later, getting some water, and it just, I don't know, it just went away. So I was real nervous there for a minute, but came back through.
Right, and I was glad you snapped out of it. But so one of our kind of strategies, philosophies is, you know, let's walk around together, and when we stop at a vendor, if we can, me, you, or Eli, or Joey want something, let's try to bundle it together, you know, right? So if you're spending $20 or you're spending $50,
right,
hopefully you get a little better discount, and they're willing to work with you. We kind of did that a lot, and not at every place, but we did it a few times, and me and Eli were able to do it, and got some good deals doing it.
Oh, without a doubt, it's definitely the way to do it if you can.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, so not being at one of these shows before, like I had this game plan, so I pulled up on my monitors at work the map of the dealer room and the listing of the vendors, and I figured, okay, so I'm going to go to this vendor once, I'm going to go to this vendor second. I had this whole strategy to it, which completely went out the window the moment the actual show started. But I did have this silly plan in the beginning, and my goal was to get Sky Patrol. That was like the big thing I was looking for at the show. I wanted to get Sky Patrol, and I was hoping to get a Steel Brigade patch. So we searched the floor, top to bottom, every room, could not come across Sky Patrol. Came through a couple loose figures. One was a graded one, extremely nice, but it was just graded's not what I'm looking for, and I wasn't looking to spend that money. So the set just wasn't out there. So it really had to change things how I was purchasing that night.
Right. So that's Friday night. You've kind of come to that conclusion. Right. We both have. We had two sets of eyes looking for Sky Patrol and a couple loose figures, but nothing. So that changed the way you purchased Friday, right?
What were you looking for Friday?
wanted the Chuckles and Shipwreck convention set from 2007. That was the big thing I wanted, and I asked a lot of folks. I asked everybody, actually, that I thought would have it based on their other stuff, and no, could not find it. So a couple dealers said they had sold it recently online through eBay and some other things, but could not find it. I did see Chuckles by himself at
Roma's.
At Roma's, yeah, for a fair price, right?
Right.
But just couldn't do it because I need both of them,
right?
I want both of those.
Well, so I had seen Roma collectibles at other shows, but I had never seen the amount of Joes that they brought was amazing, and this was the first time I interacted with him. What a cool guy.
He's a very nice man. He was willing to deal. He gave Eli a heck of a deal on a Viper, so I thought that was really cool. And he had fabulous Joes.
Yeah, and he had all that foreign stuff that you don't see anywhere, and he had a ton of it. And I mean, that was out of the price range of stuff we were looking at, or at least I was. But yeah, I mean, it was just nice to be able to see that stuff in person. And then he really hooked Joey up, because Joey was looking for some carded Mortal Kombat guys, and he gave him a really good price on those.
Yeah, you mentioned just seeing the stuff. I didn't realize how much enjoyment I would get out of seeing some of that rarer Joe stuff. Just looking at it was just kind of cool, and not right now, I'm not in the market for a lot of that like Night Force stuff and some of those Toys R Us exclusives from back in the day. Those can be pretty pricey, but just seeing it was awesome, right? Seeing it in person was very cool. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, almost like a museum.
Right, yeah.
Very, very cool.
The toy department was the other place. It was the other dealer that we spent just a ton of our time at their booth over the weekend. The selection they had and the crew of guys that they had working there were awesome.
Yeah, so they had great selection. They were willing to make a deal, and they had these totes just full of different Joes and vehicles, and every time we stopped and looked for more than a minute, I bought something. Every time, and at the same time, I'm not satisfied to say that I know everything that they had. Had a pretty good handle on what was in the cases, right? They had these glass cases, but even though I have a pretty good handle on what was in there, I couldn't have told you if that would have been a figure I wanted or could have wanted to go back to. They just had so much great stuff, and made some fantastic deals. I picked up a Stinger in box, the remake stuff from the 25th anniversary, which I've been looking for a Stinger, and so picked it up for a great deal. But I just enjoyed looking. I could have just looked and looked and looked and looked.
The smile on your face, I couldn't find you, but then I'd round that corner, and there you were, just smiling, digging through those totes all weekend long.
Yeah, I mean, they had a good turnout, right? And they were one of probably the most popular vendor, I would say, based on. So you couldn't stay long, right? It kind of wasn't fair to everybody else,
right?
Especially for how long I could have stayed. So you tried to go, and then when the line got a little bit busy behind you tried to get out of there and then stop back. But every time we made that circle, I stopped and looked, because there was just, you never knew what was going to be in there, and there was 3, 4, maybe 5 totes of just figures,
right?
And two totes full of vehicles and kind of those play sets of the 80s, with this.
The other thing with those totes, and just to speak to the camaraderie of the show, was almost every time I was down there on my hands and knees digging, there was somebody to my left and my right. Most of the time, those guys would ask, "Hey, what are you looking for? Did you see this?" And there was a real team effort, or camaraderie of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of trying to find something and letting the other person know.
Yep. Again, not competitive. Not, this is my tote, you look in your tote.
Right.
Yeah. I'll give you the scraps. No, it was cool.
And there weren't scraps at that booth, at the toy department.
There weren't.
Because, I know we're getting ahead of our show, but 5 o'clock on Saturday, we were still standing there discussing whether we should buy stuff. There was still stuff at the end of the show.
I know, which I certainly regret still not buying that one. So Friday night kind of came to a close, and probably in the top 3 of the things that happened at JoeFest was the meetup, swap.
The swap meet, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of go out there, and I'm expecting Like what we brought was a beer box with some extras, right? Some stuff. That's what I'm figuring everyone's showing up with, a small, file box full of Joes.
And even at this time, even with the show as big as it was, and all these people that were there, I still thought it was going to be us and like maybe 10 other dudes. That was it. That was going to be there. It would be a half hour long, and everybody would go their own separate ways. That's not how it played out.
Oh no, it was like another vendor show. I mean, people were bringing down totes and boxes. 3-4 people carrying stuff. They weren't carrying junk either. I mean, this is convention exclusive stuff, foreign, men in box from the 80s. I mean, just you name it, they had it. I mean, it was that was the best Joe selection I'd ever seen outside of the selection that I saw on there. Right, that beat every other toy show I had ever seen. The swap meet. And again, some of it was collectors. Some of it seemed like maybe guys that sold online, or maybe they had small shops. It's my understanding that they kind of ran out of space, right? I mean,
yeah.
So just great stuff, and there were a lot of camaraderie, a lot of Joe talk going on.
It was literally the show just continued, but this was like the happy hour of the show. It was just a Joe show with beer. It's what it was. You know what I mean? And then that's really what was made that so great too. Is that's when we were actually able to run into some more people that we knew through online and able to talk to them. We got to talk to Paul from Plastic Battles, Brian from Special Mission Force.
Yeah, and Eli and Joey had a really good time talking to both of them. So did I. They were super cool, giving Eli some hints on his photography, and just really good guys and good collectors, and just nice to meet some fellow Joe collectors.
Yeah, and just hey, thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, enjoyed it a lot. So my favorite thing I picked up that day was heavy metal. He has some scratches. His joints are real tight, but I've just always liked that figure. And
he's a great figure.
He's so cool. So I'm really excited to have one. Want to upgrade at some point. And then also I picked up an Outback. So there's some dings, but his shirt is very white. So hopefully I can use him to build and maybe build a nice one. But
you came running over to me at some point, and you're like, hey, and you're waving a figure, and you're like, you owe me $10.
Well, yeah, so, okay.
I think I was talking to Paul, and then you just, I wish everybody could see it. It was like you were waving tickets in your hand or something.
All right, well, so it's what, 10:30, 11 o'clock? Mm-hmm. So we've been drinking beer for about 5 hours, right? so that's factored in. But you had already said we didn't find any
Sky
Patrol, right? So I found Airborne, the second Airborne, and the Sky Patrol Airborne, and so when I found him, I knew he had a couple little dings on him, but the guy wanted like $16. I got him for 10. Yeah, and so at this point, I'm thinking we just gotta leave here with the Sky Patrol for Joe, and this was a good deal, right? Or at least it was in my mind. I don't know. And you were probably like, "Well, thanks for spending $10."
No, it was just great because you were running over. You were so excited.
I was.
And you were just telling me to give you $10. I remember giving you $10, and I didn't even know why yet.
Yeah, I was super excited.
No, he was a good figure. I was happy you got it for me.
Yeah, so in that score, I got a complete Alpine, which is very nice.
Yes,
I got my Outback, which is almost complete. I actually had his weapon, even though his weapon was broke, so I'm just missing the flashlight. Pretty nice one. And then your guy for $45.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about that.
And then I picked up while walking around the comic book 3-pack they brought out a few years back with Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and the villain from comic issue number 2. I can't remember his name. Super cool looking figure. So I was able to pick that up and Ambush. Yeah, for a real good price.
Yeah.
And then we ended up selling Min on Card Marauders Spirit too. To that guy, and when we sold it to that guy, I walk over and you're haggling with him.
Yeah, so I was haggling at 85. I was pretty strong, and then you come over and go with the 80. So
No. I settled in the middle with him for 82.
That's right.
But then I had so much fun haggling with him. I said, no, just give it to the 80. You can keep the $2
right.
for that. So we ended up talking to that dude for like a half hour.
He was a good guy. I never got his name, but
he gave it to me. But like you said, the 5 hours of drinking beer, I don't remember it.
Yeah, he was fun. He had good Joe information too.
Yeah. He was a dealer. He had a shop for a while, and then now he was just selling online, but thinking about opening up another shop. So
right. I could have. I wish in some ways that would have been Saturday night, because knowing that we had a whole nother day to go back through those booths, I kind of held back.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And if that would have been Saturday night, I would have bought some more.
Yeah.
There was some stuff out there. One of the things I saw was a unopened Rattler to the Target exclusive one.
Okay.
And I think I would have picked that up for what they were asking for the next day, but just because I knew what I had bought at that point.
So the lobby, or I think it went on to midnight, right? I think we only probably stayed till 11:30 or so, but then I saw online or on Twitter that the hotel had closed it down.
Well, yeah, I mean you can't go all night, right? But I feel like it would have.
Yeah. So if you check out our Twitter, because I have a brief video I put up of the show or of the lobby swap, and you'll be impressed if you're wondering how many people were out there.
Yeah, and I think maybe as we go throughout the year, maybe if we see good deals, we see something you don't need but it's nice, I think probably buy it, put it back, and make sure we bring it out next year.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be keeping a box or a pile to the side just to do that again. That was so much fun.
It's fun and a good way to get some Joes out to people that are looking for them.
Yeah. Definitely. So that rounds out that night.
Right. So Saturday we wake up, run out, grab some coffee and a biscuit, and then we're there 8:00, right when the doors open. So we walk through, and we're headed back to in the main hallway in the corner. There was Princeton Toys, and he had some color coded kind of pieces and weapons set up. And we wanted to get there early and go through that because it had a lot of traffic the day before.
Right, yeah. So Princeton Toys had this wonderful setup where they just had a ton of vehicles for parts. And you could just go through these totes. And then on the other side of his booth, he had weapons and other small parts all categorized by color. So we could not get in there. Every time we tried, we couldn't get into the small stuff. But the night before, I was able to find a piece for the hammer, the fan. So I remember I picked up a hammer, and it had the fan that I needed. And I think I was talking to you, and I said, I don't know if I want to get this whole thing. I only need this little piece. And that's when Paige walked by and gave me the pro tip. He said, the time to buy it's when you see it. You can flip the rest later. And 100% right. Look, I've been looking for this fan for like a month. Why am I not going to get it right now? So definitely picked that up and was happy to add that to the collection.
Right, and the way he had things color coded was so exciting, right? Because you kind of knew like, we're looking for some stuff for the general, and a lot of those missiles and accessories are in yellow, so we're going to take a lot of time. But our idea was let's get there early because the doors open to the public at 10, and it's probably going to get pretty crowded. So as we're walking in. And that's where we want to be, right? We want to be there. We're walking past the exclusive table.
Where it was last night.
Where it was the night before.
Scorched Earth table, yeah.
And what's to our right?
The Sky Patrol. All 6 of them sitting there bagged complete.
And when you say complete, that includes the parachutes.
Parachutes, file cards, the whole 9 yards. And they got a fair price on them. But a little higher than, what I was hoping to pay. But at this point, I kind of lose my breath. I'm pumped. I've been looking for these guys for a while. I don't need all 6, but I think it's best to try to buy them in the bundle. You know what I mean? And the ones that I do have aren't complete. So, but I get back and I'm just nervous at this point because in my mind, I don't want to hit him with too low of an offer because I don't want to insult him. But at the same time, I want to get a good deal. But I don't want him to realize how excited I am that he has these because I looked everywhere the night before. And I look at him, I check them out, I'm like, they're pretty good. And then I act like I'm looking at some of his other stuff. And then, I make him an offer on it, and, it works for him and worked for me, and, I'm pumped. So we go back to the room, and I'm really looking him over, and now I'm stoked. I'm like, I got these great condition at a great price. I was so happy with it. I wish I knew his name. I can't remember it. But when we walked back through, I shook his hand and told him thanks.
Well, he had great stuff, right?
He
didn't just have the Sky Patrol. He had a couple really nice Sergeant Slaughters with the batons, which is super hard to find. And he had fair prices on all of his stuff. Like, it was exciting to see. And I kind of wonder if somebody, one of the other vendors didn't just buy him out because he had such nice prices and then he was gone.
Right, yeah. He was only there for maybe an hour or so that morning.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you shook his hand, and then we were able to get over there to Princeton Toys and start going through, and we found a bunch of pieces we needed for the General. The other thing we're looking for is laser rifles. We found some laser rifles. Just going through those bins was fun.
I had a huge home run because I found the 82-83 Grunt M16 that I've been looking for, and I was following a couple on eBay. I just couldn't bring myself to spend, like $8 for one weapon and then pay for shipping on top of that.
Right.
So, boom, there it was.
And that's what's neat about the way he had that set up is if you were willing to put in the time, you could find some good deals. And everything was fairly priced. So he was selling stuff at a fair price. And, they're not super far from your house. So maybe in the future, if he has a store. I don't think he has a storefront
No,
right
he's
now.
working on it, yeah.
We'll have to go down there and see what he has. Okay, so once we hit up Princeton Toys, we thought it was time for Eli to meet Sergeant Slaughter, right? So Eli wanted to meet Sergeant Slaughter and take some pictures with him. So we went and got in line, and there was only one family in front of us, but he was super kind to that family. We kind of already shared that. And then he gave Eli a couple extra pictures and for free, and he autographed. He was just such a gentleman and so cool in the way he interacted. So we took a couple pictures with Eli, and then he says to you and I, "You want to get in the picture? Let's take one together." So he could have charged us another $65 or said, "If you guys want in it, we'll charge you for another picture." But he didn't. Like, he was just a super gentleman, and it was so cool to get that picture with him. Like I said, kind of went back to my 10-year-old self,
right?
And just a good guy. And the manager fella, I believe that was with him, he was super nice too, talking to Eli. And they gave him a little autographed picture of the animal, right, from WWF from our youth. And I'm not sure Eli knew who he was, but just a kind gesture, nonetheless. Okay, so then, now we're at the point where it's time to just start making laps. So the next place we go to is the room off to the left if you're walking down the main hallway, and there's a custom guy in there, and I'll let you talk more about that.
So it's knocked up customs, and they had the gentleman who does it. He did a lot of customs that were all great, but he did 3 vehicles in the Sky Patrol Chrome. And the Conquest that he did was just knockout gorgeous. I have not ever really been a huge fan of the Conquest. I think it's because of the yellow on the back end. So that's never a vehicle that was on my radar. But, holy cow, when I saw that, I took everything I had not to just buy it. Like, I literally had to talk myself down from buying it. And the only thing... So, in the end, I didn't get it. So I held off on it Friday night, because I was, the rest of the show. Then Saturday, I went and I looked at it that morning, and I was just thinking, should I do this? Should I do this? Because it wasn't cheap, but, it was worth every penny he was asking, in my opinion. So, and just to backtrack, like, he did the, I don't know, like, the vacuumized chrome. I know I'm not saying that correctly, but he did it that way. He didn't just spray paint it with chrome paint. This looks like it came from the factory. Like, this is how, Hasbro would have made it 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Retail quality. All 3 of the ones he made.
And was just seeing it, like, and he did the stickers. Like, I'm almost like an anti-sticker person because I can never put them on straight, and it just bugs me because I'm crazy and it needs to be straight. But every one of his were just done perfectly, just stunning. Like, I couldn't find anything wrong with it. Like, I'm almost trying to find something wrong with it so, I can say I shouldn't buy it, but I never do. But, so I ended up passing on it. But I'll fast forward later on through the day because this is still pretty early in the morning when and we're looking at it for the first time on Saturday. You and Eli are at the showroom, and I'm just hanging out back at the room with Joey. And I say, hey, listen, let's go talk to him. I want to go look at it one more time. And we go back down there, and he wasn't there. And I'm looking at it. And then come back at the end of the show, and it was sold. So I was kind of bummed out about that. But what it did allow me to do was walk over, I believe the gentleman's name is Brian, and talk to him and just tell him how much I appreciated just him bringing it and building it, and how awesome it was just to see it. And the gentleman who bought it has a YouTube channel called, I believe it's Retro Blasting, and I just watched my first video from him. One of our followers on Twitter sent it to me. He's the one who purchased it. And then seeing how much he loved it made it okay for me not to buy it, because he got so much joy from personally owning it. So it's just, it worked out. It went to a great home for a guy who appreciates having it. So, but Brian, if you ever hear this, I hope you know, man, that was just some of the best work I'd ever seen, and I really appreciate you bringing that just so I could see it.
So after we kind of left that room, right, we ended up attending one of the panels. Mm-hmm. It was Kirk's panels.
Yeah, the first one.
And so it was awesome. I mean, just hearing him talk and about how he was able to build the G.I. Joe empire, and the insight and kind of his strategy of doing so was very, very, very cool. And I kind of took the opportunity to ask him a question that I've always wanted to know, and that was, what happened with the Sunbow series and then the transition to Deke? And I kind of feel bad because I feel like I might have asked it in an insulting way because I said the storytelling wasn't as good with Deke, and I shouldn't have done that.
It's true.
Yeah, well, yeah, but sometimes truth is not not important in these things. But it was just so interesting to hear from him that it was really just a bean counter move, and what I was excited about was, he was kind of stood behind the fact that, hey, Deke was the only ones that wanted to make it, and we're glad they did, and I'm glad they did, right? Because as a 6 and 7 year old, I loved the cartoon, right? It's not until I became like a 30-year-old guy that I was like, yeah, this cartoon's kind of weird, right? As a child, I loved it, but
and there was something special about being able to see those characters on television and then go to the store and buy them.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. So, but just hearing how it all happened and how the bean counters really caused it, and the hubris of maybe the others, not Kirk. Kirk knew that the synergy they had created had to continue, but kind of everyone has a boss, right? Even though he was pretty high up, and they kind of ruined that, and something that we always call the lost years, right? So your Shockwave and your Spearhead year, those guys that we never got to see in kind of animated form, is true. And it would have been neat to see what Sunbow could have done with them.
So I think one of the things that I took away from that panel was I had like this frustration or this animosity that the people who were working on G.I. Joe didn't care anymore at some point and quit. That is not the case. The people who were working on G.I. Joe loved it and the brand and wanted to carry it forward. That there was other parts of the corporation that were only concerned about the bottom line, and that's what affected the brand. It wasn't the people who worked on it per se, and I didn't realize that until talking to him, or not so much that I actually talked to him, but hearing him talk about it.
Right, and that's what they had that made it special. They had a special group of people that cared about what they were doing. And what they did is they created a world with special people, right? So we love G.I. Joe because each one of our G.I. Joe characters are special superheroes, right? Right. Like normal superheroes to us. But, we had special people that created that universe. And when those folks weren't able to make the decisions anymore and it was business executives, then
that's when things change.
Yeah, and that's generally how it happens in life, right? so that's not unique to G.I. Joe. So we got to do the panel, and afterwards, we entered Eli's photo into the contest.
So Special Mission Force was holding a photo competition. So Brian from Special Mission Force was in charge of it, and got to talk to him the night before, like we already said. But you and Eli took the photo down and officially entered it. I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so Eli's photo is of the Triple T and Sergeant Slaughter, and then the Renegade. So he's doing push-ups with, is it Red Dog?
No, I think it's Mercer in that photo.
Okay, so Mercer and Slaughter are doing some push-ups, and the other two are working on the Triple T, getting it ready. So it's a really neat photo he took. He took it outside, and what was really exciting is he ended up getting second place, which meant a whole lot to him. So that was cool, and I think if they do it again, he'll want to enter another.
Oh yeah. So we should mention Eli's Instagram account. So if you enjoy toy photography, make sure to check out Slaughter's Free Time.
Yeah, on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So the other thing Eli got to do after he won was he took the photo over to Larry and just struck up a conversation with him. Right. So you and I are kind of hanging out.
We're talking to Jason.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I see Eli walks over to Larry and just starts talking to him. And I'm like, well, I think they were charging for autographs. And I see Larry autographs it, and they start interacting. And I'm like, oh man, should I go over and pay for it? But then Larry seems to be very engaged. So I'm like, I don't want to walk over there and assault him,
Right.
And I kind of mentioned that to you, and your response is, let them work it out, right? They got something going on. Don't worry about it. And it was just so cool to see them sit back and talk. And he even drew a Slaughter figure or a quick animation for Eli, and he offered to do that. Eli didn't ask. So he was just a real, very nice man, and seemed generally like a good person.
Yeah, and I talked to Joey about that afterwards. He said that Larry seemed tired when they were standing in line. But when Eli got there and it was just those two talking, he perked up and was enjoying the conversation. And that's what me and you've talked about before. This was all created for was young kids, not us, those 30-year-old guys. Thinking back on it, not that he doesn't like us, but I'm sure it was special for him to be able to go back and see somebody, that age that he created it for.
Right, kids still enjoying what he created for kids. So. I thought that was pretty cool. He seemed like a genuinely nice man. So,
and he let Eli come around the booth too and get a picture with him.
Yeah, and they sat beside him as he drew a Slaughter.
Yeah, so they've literally just hung out for like 25 minutes.
Right. So you and I would have had to pay money for that experience.
And it would have, definitely.
Yeah. So that was cool. So then we're kind of winding down, right? But,
this is the end of the show.
Yeah, but we're still making laps, right? Because you just never know what you're going to find. We're still picking up, small guys. We'll call them smalls, right? We've kind of bought our big stuff, but we're picking up individual figures and different things. And so we go back to the toy depot, and we come across the Sky Shark. Pretty good shape, right? But then we come across another Sky Shark, but this one is
Action Force.
Yes,
and it's basically mint. I mean, it's got, because, with the Sky Patrol stuff, I guess it's oxidized or whatnot. It turns that yellow, just that it fades. But this one, it wasn't like that. At the top of the tail fins, there was a little bit of rub that and I would assume that just happened from packaging, being in a package forever, those top. But besides those two little black spots, and you just have to be crazy like I am that look for like every little tiny detail. Like I don't think you would have noticed right away.
I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, no, it was super nice and at a really affordable price.
I know. And we say that now, but for some reason we acted like they were asking a mint for it, right? We kept going back and forth on whether or not we should buy it.
Well, that's always the case. Like I don't know what it is about buying Joes. It's like you want them, but you don't want to spend any money for them. Okay. So, but then as soon as you don't buy them, then you kick yourself the moment afterwards.
I've thought all week about it, and now my eBay is full of watching these Sky Sharks. and the more I look at them, I'm like, oh, I should have bought that one, especially the Action Force one. The other one, I feel like we'll come across that deal again,
right?
But the Action Force one was just super cool. So I kind of regret not buying that. And then to make it all the more worse is I ordered pizza that night and spent enough money on pizza that I could have just bought that, So that was kind of frustrating to me when I woke up Saturday morning, like, I didn't need the pizza.
Or Sunday morning.
Yeah, Sunday morning. I didn't need the pizza. I just ordered it because we were up and talking.
I guess the show's pretty much over. Let's just fast forward to that evening. So everybody, or not everybody, I'm not exactly sure what everybody did, but a lot of people went to the dinner for Ron Rudat. And we didn't have tickets for that. So we just hung out at the hotel around the pool with the kids. And the pool was green, by the way. But we just hung out at the table there.
The only negative of the weekend. The only negative thing I can say is, if the DoubleTree could have the outdoor pool open,
that would have been cool.
In June next year, that'd be great.
But we just hung out with the boys outside and just spent the night BSing, and it was cool. And it wasn't much Joe talk. I mean, we talked about the show a little bit, but it wasn't Joe. I mean, that wasn't the main reason or topic or conversation. It was just two dads hanging out with their son.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those very normal, special moments.
Yeah.
Right? So I hope they enjoyed it as much as we did.
I mean, yeah, I had a blast. It's one of the things I'll take, from the whole weekend, because it's not too often that we get to do that just completely uninterrupted, the four of us. So that was just a ton of fun, and one of the things I think that made the weekend special was that, and it was definitely a good time.
Yeah, so we ended the night kind of that way, hanging out at the pool and then ordering a pizza that we didn't need. I ate 6 of the slices, and Joey ate 2 of the slices, and
me and Eli just looked at you guys like you were crazy,
and I just felt terrible the next morning when I woke up, because it was like 1:30 by the time we finished that pizza. And then we kind of did our road trip home.
Yeah. But let's backtrack, because we forgot all about the 3D Joe Ron Rudat panel.
Yeah. Okay,
and Jody Classified was in there too, helping out. So that panel, they prepared just a bunch of slides. I mean, a lot of work, you could tell, went into that, but the projector wasn't working. So everything had to be off the cuff, and they had to just hold up pictures at times. And even with that, I mean, even though it was like a panel that was based on these drawings and this artwork, it still didn't take away from with it not being there. It was just to hear Carson and the other gentleman, I can't remember his name, and then Ron Rudat just talk about the process and everything that went into it was really amazing. And I just want to say, thanks to Carson from 3D Joe's for putting that all together, because I learned a ton.
Yes, very, very interesting to hear how Ron he said made like 8 to 9 drawings a day, and how some of the other design team would look at it and say, hey, well, why don't we use the legs here and mix this up? And again, it was it seemed like they had a synergy of working as a group to create these figures, and there wasn't a lot of ego in it. They didn't seem to mind the we'll call it criticism or input, however you want to say it, and just turned out some amazing action figures that have influenced this group of 30-somethings and early 40-year-olds for their whole life, right? I mean, we're still like this little cult following. It's a good thing that Kurt and Ron used it for good and not evil. They would have like a little sect out in the Midwest, maybe, if they would have, if they wanted to.
So we didn't talk too much about our buys. Is there certain figures that we didn't cover that you really enjoyed picking up, or you were surprised with, or is there any stories about them?
Well, we got a lot of figures, right?
Yeah.
So we got some good show material moving forward. But the one I'll say that I picked up was the very first figure I bought, and that was Cutter, right?
Yeah.
I love the Cutter character on the Sumbo series. He's fun, witty, just a cool guy. And the figure I feel like is very unique, right? Just a very unique mold. And I picked him up almost what I'll call, I think he's mint. I think it's the nicest one around.
And when those Cutters or any of those Joes that are in that light blue, that color fades. And whether it's in the sun or not, like that'll just turn bad. And yours is perfect. Arms, chest, all the same color. Just lucky. And you got that for a super affordable price. It's great eye of spotting that. Yeah,
very first one. Eli picked up Gung Ho and I got him. And he's the only figure that I own that when you look through the G.I. Joe Collector's Guide book, I would rather have my version than the one in the book. And there's just fabulous figures all through that book, and they're in great condition. But I might be a little partial, but I think the one I own is maybe a little nicer.
I agree.
What about you?
Well, for me, so do you remember in the back room, all the way to the right, for the first time, we saw the Defiant.
Oh my gosh, yes, beautiful. I never wanted the Defiant till now.
Right. I didn't know about it as a kid, and I had seen it, a while back, folded up on a shelf at a shop, all covered in dust. So it just was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But seeing it opened up and on display, how large it was, that thing is amazing.
Doesn't do it justice, does it? Folded up.
No,
it needs to be displayed.
Yep, and it's huge. I mean, it is huge. So where it was displayed, to the left of it, there was a dealer right there, and he had some great convention. Well, he just had great stuff altogether, but a lot of it was like some 2000 Joes and the Valor vs. Venom 6-packs and some convention stuff. And I was able to pick up the Slaughter's Marauders from the 2006 Joe convention, and we worked out a good deal on that. But there was just some mass confusion because you had a lot of people trying to get in there, and then you had the Defiant right there too on the floor displayed. So like I literally at one point almost fell over it. Like, can you imagine how that would have went?
That'd have been great.
Right, if I would have crushed a Defiant. Yeah,
you'd have had to
buy
my
200-pound butt. Yeah, would have had to buy a $600 or $700 crushed Defiant. Can you imagine that phone call to the wife?
I'd tell her about it.
So, yeah, but anyway, like we had to work out a price. He had to talk to his partner to make sure that price would work. When we were doing so, he had ran out of bags. So he was giving me the figures, and I was like trying to put them in my cargo pockets on one because I didn't want them to get scratched up. Mm-hmm. And somehow I missed, and then I was putting the weapons in another pocket, and I ended up losing a couple of the weapons. So I'm so mad at myself. But I don't know. Like I'm wondering, did I lose the weapons? Did I not get the weapons? I'm not sure because he had them in these plastic containers that held 12 Joes or 16 Joes at a time. You know what I mean? These separators, and I'm not sure what happened there.
You'll find it. You'll find it online or
yeah. I mean, yeah. I got the figures, and that's what really matters.
Right.
We'll figure out the rest as we go on. So, but no, I was super stoked. They were on my list to get. But this is one thing I wanted to point out or talk about was I had a list and I had a battle plan of I'm going to booth A, B, C, D, and exactly what I'm doing. And none of that mattered because when you get to a show, one, they didn't have all the people I was looking for, and you don't go in a certain order. One booth isn't going to have this, and the next booth's going to have that.
Yeah, you really should just go with an open mind.
Right.
I learned that too.
Well, and I think you got some better deals than what I did. Not better deals, but you were more open to what you were looking for than I was. So I think that stopped me from picking up some great figures because I was looking for these specific ones. I looked over some, mint guys for really good prices because of that. So I'll definitely have a more open mind next time.
When you stop at a booth, look over and say, what do they have that I want? Not that I'm immediately looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Yep.
Well, I mean, that pretty much covers everything. But one of the things I want to really tap on for the weekend, at least for me, was we went there. I went to JoeFest for the toys, but I'll come back for the people. That was so much fun. And everybody I interacted with helped into that or, was part of that. And the other thing that was great about everybody we talked to is they were interested in talking to us, but they also took time to get to know the boys. You know what I mean? And that made it a whole different experience for me.
Yeah. So going back to be part of the Joe community and hanging with those other Joe collectors and learning from them and sharing experiences was much more part of it than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I just thought we were going to, kind of go have a shopping spree of G.I. Joes and we just made friends.
Yeah.
And we bought a couple Joes too, but we made friends, and so I look forward to next year.
Yeah, me too. So as everybody knows, It's been a little while since we've had a show. So we've had some technical difficulties using Skype, and so that stopped me and Mike from being able to do the show since we live a few hours apart. So, but we hope to get that fixed and start pumping out some episodes on a regular basis.
Yeah, at least every other week is what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
2 a month.
And then the other thing we want to say is thanks to Ed and his wife for putting on that show. His wife was working the counter, the ticket booth there. So we actually talked to her more than we were able to talk to Ed. He was a very busy man over the weekend. But what they put together was truly impressive. And the amount of work that they did was obvious. Or the amount of work they put in, I should say.
And I hope they felt the gratitude from the community. And I hope that it was worth it for them. And that they had a good experience doing it, like everyone that attended. So,
yeah. I actually remember thinking that at one point. I looked over and I saw Ed, and he was moving and he stopped. Looked like he just wanted to take a break for a second. I felt bad for him because he did all the work, put on this show, and couldn't experience it or enjoy it quite the way we were.
Oh no! I doubt he added many collectors to his figures or figures to his collection this weekend.
So, but that's all from us.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Take care. Oh, we might have one more thing.
Audrey, you had me pick you up something at a JoeFest, and what was I able to find you?
Found me Scarlet.
Yeah, and do you like her?
Yes, I do.
So now you can join Eli in your battles with a cool figure, yeah?
Yep, I can. I have another one, too.
Which other girl figure do you have?
Jinx. I have Jinx.
She's a ninja, right?
Yep.
All right, well, so now we know that not only do boys collect G.I. Joes, but girls collect G.I. Joes, right?
Yep, they do.
Cool.